What if the reason that you keep meeting the wrong people isn't who you're choosing? What if it's how your life is currently built? Because there is something I had to learn the hard way. Aligned people don't just show up in different places. They live different lives. And once you understand that, the search stops feeling random and the path forward becomes surprisingly clear. Maybe you have these thoughts. Maybe I just have bad luck. Or maybe there really aren't emotionally available people anymore. Or maybe I'm asking for too much. Or maybe it's me. I don't actually think any of those are true. In this episode, I want to offer you a reframe that might change how you think about dating entirely. Because once you see it, the search stops feeling impossible. And something much more interesting becomes available to you. Something you already have access to, starting today. Most people think the problem is scarcity. There are no good people left. Everyone is emotionally unavailable. Quality people doesn't exist anymore. I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think the real issue is something far more specific and far more solvable. Here it is. Searching energy attracts searchers. Building energy attracts builders. And if most of your relational energy has been going into the search, the environments, the apps, the hoping, the waiting, you've been fishing in the right sea for the wrong fish. And that's not a character flow. There's just a mismatch between the environment and what you're actually looking for. So I started thinking about this through two different lenses: attraction environment and alignment environment. And understanding the difference changed how I spent my time and how I build my weeks, and eventually who I naturally started meeting. So no rush, seriously, if you have something warm in your hands right now, let this be the moment you actually pause, just for a little while. So prepare your tea, coffee, or matcha, and let's enjoy this conversation together. And if you're new here, welcome, I'm Eva. I create deep conversations, practical, powerful tools, and honest reflections for women who want to reconnect with themselves and build a life that feels beautiful from the inside out. Because most women, I do believe that most women don't need fixing. They need returning. So welcome here, and I'm really happy that you're here. And before we go deeper, I want to say something that might genuinely relieve you. If you've been putting yourself out there, staying open, trying everything, and still ending up in the same patterns, there is a reason. And it has nothing to do with what's wrong with you. Nothing. The kind of life you build quietly filters people before you ever even meet them. That sentence is the whole episode. And once you understand it, you'll never look at this at the same way again. And if this kind of conversation feels like home to you, you probably want to stay. You can subscribe, like, I don't know if you can do those hype things. I need to find out how to do it. And comment. I would love to hear from you as well. Let me explain what I mean. An attraction environment is any context where people are primarily organized around a search. Dating apps are the obvious example, but also bars and nightlife. Social events where the underlying energy is networking rather than genuinely connecting. Or group chats and social media where people are performing rather than revealing themselves. These environments aren't bad. They're just optimized for one specific thing. And that thing isn't alignment. It's proximity, an initial appeal. An attraction environment rewards presentation. Alignment environment reveal patterns. And that's the difference. An alignment environment is any context where people are primarily organized around what they're building. A class they're taking because the subject genuinely interests them. A community that they belong because the values genuinely resonate. A creative practice, a cause, something physical, intellectual, or meaningful that they return to because it reflects who they actually are. And here's what changes everything about this. In an attraction environment, you're seeing what someone wants to present. And in an alignment environment, you're seeing how people actually live. And this is incomparably more useful information because you're not just trying to find someone impressive, you're trying to find someone real. And later I want to come back to something because there is one mistake I see even the most self-aware women making here. And ironically, the very thing that makes someone easier to find often disappears the moment they start searching. And here's something I've noticed after many conversations with women navigating this. You can't really identify an aligned person by their location. You can identify them by their lifestyle. So think about what that actually looks like. She finishes work and goes to the ceramic class, just to give you an example, the ceramics class that she's been attending for months. But not because someone might be there, because she genuinely loves working with her hands. Or she reads before bed, trains for a half marathon, or has dinner with friends where the conversation goes somewhere real. Not as a strategy, but as life. And something I see constantly in the women I work with is that many of them can articulate beautifully what they want in their partner. Emotionally available, intentional, growth-oriented, depth, healthy masculinity. And when I ask them, what does your own life look like right now? Where are you actually putting your energy? What are you genuinely building? And often there's a gap between how they want to live and how they're actually living. And not because they're lazy or inconsistent, but because so much of their energy has been going into the search rather than into the life itself. And that gap is actually the answer. I want to ask you something honestly. What's one thing that you're building right now that's completely yours? Not for anyone, not to impress anyone, just genuinely yours. Drop in a comment. I would love to know, and I would love to hear from you. So what does it actually look like to live differently? And I want you to be careful here because this can be misunderstood. This is not about collecting hobbies so someone notices you. People can feel when your life is genuinely yours and when it's been strategically designed to meet people. And those are completely different energies. And they also produce completely different results. So think of it this way. Your life is like a radio frequency. The people you're likely to meet are mostly determined by the frequency that your daily life is broadcasting, not the frequency that you intend to broadcast. So the one that you're actually living. And when you genuinely stop organizing your life around the possibility of someone arriving and start organizing it around the life you actually want to be living, something shifts. The spaces you naturally inhabit change, but not because you strategically went somewhere new, but because a life lived with genuine intention takes you somewhere that a life lived in the search never did. You don't attract aligned people by performing alignment. You attract them by living it. Tonight, write down where you've actually spent the last 30 days. Not where you've imagined your future, but where you've actually lived. Your calendar tells the truth, your intentions sometimes don't. So that would be a good test. And a life organized around searching rarely produces what searching is looking for, because the searching energy itself signals something. It signals availability from anything. And that's a very different signal from I'm building something real and I'm open to someone who's doing the same. It's different. And before we close, there is one final piece that I want to come back to, because I think it might be the most counterintuitive, let's say, or maybe illogical thing in this entire conversation. And it's the part I genuinely wish someone had told me earlier. Here's the part that's hardest to believe until you've experienced it. The woman who stops looking, not because she's giving up, but because she's genuinely engaged with her own life, is often the one who creates the most natural intersections. And not because she became magnetic through strategy, and not because she followed a formula, but because she became magnetic through congruence, living what she says she values, and building what she says she wants, being consistently who she says she is. And one thing I've noticed again and again is that aligned people feel that. Not always consciously, but they feel the difference between someone whose life is full and someone whose life is organized around waiting. And I want to share something personal here. There was a period when I genuinely believed there were no emotionally available people left. And then I looked, honestly, not at who I was meeting, but at where I was spending my time. The same social cycles, the same conversation, the same pace. I wasn't finding different people because I wasn't living differently. And everything shifted when I stopped organizing my life around finding someone and started organizing it around becoming someone that I genuinely loved being. And ironically, that's when I began crossing paths with people who valued the same things I do. And not because I went looking for them, but because I stopped looking and started living. And if those questions reveal something you want to go deeper on, Aligned by Design is the framework I created for exactly this inner work. 7 identity pillars that are guided audios and videos, self-assessment tools. It's yours forever. Link it below if you want to explore. And if you're not ready for that yet, feel free to explore the second gift, the free 3-day resets. That is also linked below. And before we close, I want to leave you with one thing. You don't find aligned people by going somewhere different. You find them by becoming someone whose life naturally crosses theirs. And that begins with one honest question. Is the life I'm building right now the kind of life I actually want to be living? Not for someone else, not to attract someone, but because it's yours. Because it reflects who you actually are. Because here's what I've come to believe. The goal was never to build a life that attracts someone. It was to build a life you'd still be grateful for if nobody arrived tomorrow. You're not behind. You're being reoriented. And what built quietly, honestly, genuinely becomes the invitation. And if you're craving more conversations like this, you can, of course, you should join the Glow letters below. It's a beautiful space for women who care about growth, emotional depth, and becoming more themselves. Quality over quantity, always. It's like below. Now, once you start building that life, once the intersections start happening, something interesting emerges. The connection, when it comes, doesn't feel the way you were taught to expect. And here's the irony. When healthy love finally arrives, many women mistake it for boredom. Because peace doesn't feel the way chemistry taught us to expect. That different, that misreading is exactly what episode number 5 of this series is about. And I think it might be one of the most important conversations in this series. So I'll see you there. Thank you for being here, genuinely, and welcome back to yourself.